This was the wildest cut down day for the Chargers that I could remember, and there was a bunch of surprising cuts, but the one I simply can't understand is Tony Jefferson.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers for 10 seasons now, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there. What a wild day we just had. The show isn't the same without you guys. To make sure you never miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. What a day. There's so many surprises to get into, so many things I didn't see coming. It's a massacre out there of 53-man roster predictions, but Tony Jefferson cut. I can't understand that the Chargers kept 12 defensive backs, which also comes with good because you have Nikko making it. You have Eric Rodgers making it, and that's the thing about today, the bittersweetness of it, is Cinderella stories and guys making it as undrafted free agents, but then also just questionable decisions like releasing Tony Jefferson, so we have to talk about that. The Chargers releasing not just Rocket Sanders or waiving him, also Kimani Vidal, their 2024 6th-round pick after just one full season with the team. We'll see if they get back on the practice squad, but obviously they feel good about Najee Harris, who was activated from the non-football injury list and now seems like he could be ready to play in week 1. I don't know about that. We will see. But again, more bad news with good news. Junior Colson done for the season on season-ending IR. And then you have, the cool story of Marlo Wax and him finding his Cinderella story and making it on the team. So much to get into, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today to start planning your future bets now. Man, David, what a day. Just a really crazy day, including a move that we just couldn't see coming. We both did our 53-man roster predictions. We both had the Chargers keeping 5 safeties and thought that Tony Jefferson was totally safe on this roster, especially after the scare, only a couple days ago. It was crazy to actually see it come to fruition, and that was the Chargers deciding to release Tony Jefferson. And I understand roster gymnastics. I understand all of those things, but Tony Jefferson feels like a guy that could have helped you win this season, and it doesn't feel like that was taken into consideration with this move.
A 93.5 overall grade in the preseason. Like, it doesn't get much higher than that. There was only one person that was graded higher than him on the defense, and of course that was Eric Rodgers, and it's only because he had 2 basically, great interceptions. He
only played 2 games, yeah.
He played 2 games, right? And so I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to base this off of competitors' welcome, if you're going to base it off of merit, base it off of going out there and performing at a high level and then providing quality depth for the back end of your defense, especially when you're going to have Derwin James close to the line of scrimmage most of the time, it doesn't make any sense to me to not have a veteran back there that clearly is in good shape and also performed better, even better than he did last year when you did decide to play the ping pong battle with him going from the practice squad to the roster and all that stuff. I feel like his play superseded that. So this move makes absolutely no sense to me. And quite frankly, it makes me pretty mad.
Understandable. He is a guy that, even as the, 4th best safety on this roster, right? With Derwin playing in the slot, like you talked about, like he really is safety 3, and I think he's one of those guys that gives you the versatility to let Derwin James play, even if an Alohi Gilman goes down, even if an Elijah Molden goes down, where you don't have to kind of abort how good Derwin James is at slot corner and have to put him back there and play deep safety. So such a good point, and it's also not just the preseason. This was one of, if not the best defenders the Chargers had in their playoff game. The one basically guy that actually came through when the lights were the brightest and the Chargers were out there trying to win one. He played well enough to get himself off of the roster bubble for sure. He played 4 preseason games, didn't play long.
And played with violence.
Last one. He was great. He brought a level of physicality. You saw the first game he got elevated last season. I think it was against the Cardinals or the Falcons. I can't remember which one, but he came in, immediately blew up a wide receiver screen, right, and just took on 2 blockers, blew them up, and made a big physical play for a minimal gain. He has that in him, and it was just so cool to see him back to looking more like himself than even he ever did last year with a full off season to train to actually get his body in shape. And like, there's many people out there that are going to say like, okay, he'll be back on the practice squad tomorrow. They did this because they didn't have to pass him through waivers. All those things could be true. They could be. The way that Tony Jefferson is out there talking, I don't know if Tony Jefferson is coming back. And I think that's just a reality that has to set in for you. I mean, this is what he posted. From him on Twitter after that. I mean, he said, it'd just be motivation for me. I don't take any of it personal. I just put it on tape when I get the opportunity to. That doesn't sound like a guy that's necessarily coming back. And if I were him, I'd be trying to get on an active roster and trying to be an impact player on a defense after showing what I did in the preseason. And you're right. I mean, Jim Harbaugh said it, right? He said, how do you know who the best players are? They play the best. This was arguably the best defender you had throughout the entire preseason. Showed that he has more than enough gas in the tank. And basically what it comes down to is you're keeping Kendall Williamson instead of him because you still did keep 5 safeties, R.J. Mickens, Kendall Williamson, and the top 3 guys of Lohi, Derwin, and Elijah Molden. And I understand the special teams prowess and a younger player and stuff like that, but like as much as I want special teams to be good, the Chargers are one injury away from Tony Jefferson having to take on a major role. Is R.J. Mickens ready for that? Is Kendall Williamson ready for that? I don't know if they are.
Yeah, I don't know if they are either. And I know for Kendall Williamson, he had 5 special teams tackles, and I understand that, that is a part of it. It's not meant to be
a slight to him either. It's not about Kendall Williamson at all. It's just about Tony Jefferson being a good player right now.
Absolutely. And Alohi Gilman, one of the starting safeties for this team, has dealt with some injuries and dealt with some, having some time off the field, right? So you want to have somebody that can step in and play competent football and be a security blanket back there, a guy that's incredibly intelligent, that knows where everyone's supposed to be, that plays hard and plays physical. It just feels like that was the embodiment of what this Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh-led football team would want. That's the type of football player that I would want on my football team. And obviously, hey, this is the initial 53-man roster. Things will change. This is not going to be the team that they take with them to Brazil. I guarantee that. There will be changes. There will be things and players that are different on this team. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I feel like he played well enough to earn this spot. So that's why this move still doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't get it based on, if it's based on merit, if it's based on, your 4th safety playing defense, it seems like there's an obvious gap there. And it's nothing against Kendall Williamson, who I actually thought played really well. It was just always going to be a tough room to crack. Maybe not as tough as, thought it was going to be, but I just don't understand. If you're going to bring him back, what else could he have done? And I just don't think there is anything else he could have done because he played fantastic. But there was some, good news, some Cinderella stories that ended up making the roster, including one I don't think anyone saw coming. That was the Chargers not only keeping Nikko Reed, but also keeping Eric Rodgers, who the last time we saw him was, injured in the second game after a 2-interception, 1-pick-6 game, and then was walking around in a walking boot. Did not see that coming. The Chargers overall keep 12 defensive backs and 2 of their undrafted free agent stars in the preseason, David, Nikko Reed and Eric Rodgers.
Yeah, for Nikko Reed, I saw this one. I predicted him. I think we both predicted him to make the roster. I feel like he earned it. He played consistent football throughout the offseason and into the preseason. So, and that's what it takes. That's what it takes. As an undrafted free agent, you have to make splash plays day in and day out, and he was able to do that. So, I feel like he earned his spot on this roster. Congratulations to him. I feel like, he's going to still, have to fight to get himself on the field, but I like what I saw from Nikko Reed. For Eric Rodgers, that was a little bit of a surprise for me, just because of the injury. He did play exceptionally well. Obviously, 5 targets, 0 receptions allowed, 2 interceptions, and a pass defense. That's quality football for sure. But I just would have liked to see that replicated over time. But also, I think part of this move for Eric Rodgers in particular is the fact that they put Dean Leonard on that IR designated to return. And also, I feel like, as I said, things will change. This might be a spot with Eric Rodgers where things will change, and it might be his spot that changes.
I think, honestly, what's even more likely than that is they're going to put Eric Rodgers now on injured reserve now that they kept him on the roster. So I don't know if it's a Dean Leonard thing, because I think he might miss the next 4 games, but they had to keep him on the active roster to not have it be a season-ending IR situation. So if you're looking where more spots are going to open up, that could be one of them with Eric Rodgers.
Yeah, you only get 2 of those beforehand.
he could go on IR tomorrow, right? And then the Chargers will be able to use that spot for somebody else. So all part of it, that is what this time of year is. It's the strategic aspect of it. And just as far as from a standpoint of taking chances on young corners who could be, diamonds in the rough, that's a position I like them taking some chances there. I like them even on a, limited exposure with Eric Rodgers, taking a chance on him, taking a chance on Nikko Reed, and you still have Jasir Taylor who can, do all the special teams things, but at least you have other guys that you feel like can actually go on the field and give you something there. But we still have more to get into because that wasn't the only surprising move, because Rocket Sanders and Kimani Vidal were both released, and Najee Harris was activated from the NFI. So we're going to get into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time. It's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing Yahoo Fantasy football with the Locked On Chargers and David as well, and Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With the season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many ways to compete. If you want more ways, you can try the brand new Guillotine League. Lowest score each week loses until there is one team left standing. I definitely have one of those. One of my favorite new concepts. But the NFL season kicks off on September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. David, we thought there was a roster battle between Rocket Sanders and Kimani Vidal. Maybe not, because
maybe not.
No matter what kind of each of those guys showed, we got to the cut down day, David, and the Chargers released not just Rocket Sanders, breaking a lot of fans' hearts, but also 2024 6th-round pick, Kimani Vidal.
Yeah, that was a huge surprise for me. I did not expect that at all. I thought at least Rocket Sanders looked the best out of those two. For Kimani Vidal, he just didn't produce enough for me to really consider him to make a roster spot. I know, obviously, they had him last year, and he had to deal with some injuries and also just not being super productive. And yeah, I know, I've said it again. The backup offensive line that he had to run behind did not do him any favors, but Rocket Sanders was more productive than he was with those opportunities. But obviously, we all did not know the wild card in this situation, which, of course, is Naji Harris and him actually being activated. So that also, I'm sure, played a big factor into the decision. But I just felt like, hey, this is a guy in Rocket Sanders that the Chargers clearly coveted and they wanted. And I feel like, they gave him a lot of opportunities to go out there and show himself and perform well. And maybe he just didn't perform that well. But I do feel like we could definitely see him on the practice squad. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens for sure. I mean, it does feel like one of these guys at the very least will be there, especially considering, with Najee Harris, if he's not out there for week one, you probably would have to elevate one of these guys. Naheem Miller-Hines was the other running back that got cut here. Jarrett Patterson also doesn't make the cut, but Rocket had 28 carries, 101 yards, 3.6 average yards per carry, but all 25 for 69, 2.8 yards per carry. So neither one of these guys had a real chance to kind of go out there and put up bananas number that would have actually kind of solidified their spot on the team. I didn't think either of them was really bad. And, Kimani Vidal, I thought, looked better, but it just seemed like neither of those guys really had a chance. Neither did the quarterbacks late in a lot of those games as well. But I do think, for as much as we've hyped up Rocket Sanders, to think he's just automatically going to get claimed by someone is probably a little unrealistic. I think there's still a very good chance they can get him back on the practice squad if they want him on there, right? And maybe they go Naheem Miller-Hines. Maybe they keep two of these guys. Kimani Vidal, though, sucks that, if this is the end of that, yeah, man, it sucks because he was someone that we were pretty excited about. But you're right. The big decision there was the Chargers deciding to activate Najee Harris and keep him on the opening 53-man roster. And this is important because, obviously, Joe Ortiz told us he might be ready for week one. And the one thing me and you have talked about, and I brought up the last couple of shows, is like there's just a lot of gray area between being ready for week one and being stuck on the NFI list and having to miss the first 4 games, 3 of which are divisional games. Those are 3 big, giant games. So it's like if he's only going to miss a week, then maybe you do keep him on here and you activate one of those guys off the practice squad, whoever that ends up being. But if he was on the NFI, he would have had to miss at least the first 4 games. And this is definitely good news because at least now there is some optimism that he will be ready in week one in Brazil against the Chiefs.
Right, and I think that's definitely good news, especially now that we know that the Chargers are only going to be carrying 3 running backs, at least so far, from the initial 53-man roster. And I think this is just a move telling everybody, hey, he's getting close, but we don't want to guarantee that he's going to be out for 4 games. Like, we want to give him the opportunity to be able to prove that he can get back on the field. And also, he's a veteran, never missed a single game in his 4-year NFL career. So I feel like that also factors into it as well. But they want to give him the chance to make it make it back before those 4 games would be up. And also the same thing with short-term IR. Before the roster is announced, they only have 2 guys that they can designate. Afterwards, they can do up to 6. And I got that from Daniel Popper of The Athletic, obviously the fantastic beat writer who covers the Chargers. But yeah, Naji Harris going to factor in very, very importantly into this rushing offense. And there's no greater test than going up against a team that you have not been able to beat pretty much for 3 or 4 years in the Kansas City Chiefs. So you want to have everybody at full strength, and you want to be able to impose your will. And a part of that is having a big bruising running back that can close out a football game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, at least as far as, them having Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton for that first game against the Chiefs, because if there was kind of one team where the game plan you go into saying like, hey, we're going to keep their quarterback on the sideline and limit possessions and hope to kind of strangle the life out of them, it's the Chiefs. Like, that has been a formula that has worked against them before in the past. The Chargers, if you have Mekhi Becton healthy and in the starting lineup, if you have Najee Harris back out there, able to go out there and pound the rock with Omarion Hampton, now you're talking about a team who might be able to get a little bit closer to, I think, the physicality that they imagine when they think of themselves as a very physical team, because they weren't that last year. They couldn't batter people consistently last year. Omarion Hampton's a big part of that. Najee Harris is a big part of that. Mekhi Becton is a big part of that. So now
really big.
3 running backs, right? I mean, and you have 3 guys that you feel pretty decent about. But I do assume that we're going to see a practice squad guy, or at least 1 or 2 practice squad running backs. We'll see who they decide to go with. I mean, for me, I like them taking the chance, on someone like a Rocket Sanders, but I think you have to at least open your mind up to the possibility that with 3 kind of bruising guys in the backfield right now in their running back room, that maybe they don't try to go for a change of flavor like a Naheem Miller-Hines.
Yeah, get some contrast.
To get some contrast, because they don't really have. I mean, Omarion Hampton is way more of just an all-around guy than he is just a bruiser for sure. But it definitely would give you some contrast to those other guys in that running back room right now. But it's crazy because it was such a crazy day that the Chargers made a trade for an offensive lineman, and it's like the 5th thing that we're talking about today. And that was the Chargers deciding to trade for offensive tackle Austin Deculus from the Houston Texans for a conditional 7th-round pick in 2027. We talked about that before. With only 6 picks next year, if you see a pick moved, it's probably going to be the 2027 draft where they have a full complement of draft picks and could potentially even have some more compensatory picks. But this also kind of is a combined thing here, David, because it comes with them also waiving Branson Taylor, right? We literally talked about it live when you were here with us last night. Branson Taylor is the only guy you can make an argument for that 8th offensive lineman spot right now. But even if he makes it, there's a good chance that spot will not continue to be his. So Austin Deck was the one guy that nobody had on their 53-man roster prediction. Obviously, nothing that moves the needle for me, David. I think it would have been kind of impossible for that, but I think they told you obviously how they felt about their depth, and now they believe maybe they're getting someone who can, bring them some tackle depth that was obviously better than what they had.
First and foremost, this is a big name podcast, and how could you not love the name Deculus? Sounds like a Spartan warrior, which is awesome. But 68 career regular season snaps, all at left tackle, but he did play some right tackle in the preseason as well, according to Daniel Popper. So that, that's what you're looking for. Somebody you can take a dart throw that's not going to, cost you a lot. A 2027, 7th round pick is really nothing if you feel like this guy upgrades the quality of your depth, which you desperately need to do. Because if you watched any of the snaps in the preseason, nobody besides the starters were anything to write home about, including Branson Taylor, who struggled mightily. And as you mentioned, he moved around a lot and was going to be changed from a tackle to a guard and then back to a tackle. So there's just a lot of transition there. probably not super fair for Branson Taylor, but it is the NFL, and you got to be able to try to answer the call. And unfortunately for him, he got waived. We'll see. They did say that he was a candidate for the practice squad.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. You're kind of just trading a 2024 sixth round pick for a 2025 sixth round pick, because this is what this dude was out of LSU last year. But I just think you need like something in that room that resembles potentially young developmental guy that can hopefully turn into something, even if you don't trust the coaching staff fully for that development. I just think that you have nobody. I mean, you have 3 interior linemen in the last, the last season and a contract years. You don't have the future of that interior on the roster right now. It's only Bradley Bozeman and Mekhi Becton coming back in that room at the moment. So
yeah,
at tackle, you really have nothing besides your top 2 guys, because Trey Pipkins is a free agent after this year as well. So nothing that made you feel better about the offensive line, maybe better than the absolute disaster that they put out there in the preseason, but pretty nominal, I would say, pretty minimal as far as how much more hope we have now in that unit and their depth. But we still have more to get into, including the news, another piece of news we didn't see coming. Junior Colson, season is over. Season-ending injured reserve with what injury? I don't know at this point. And the other thing is, Marlo Wax does make the roster. So we're talking about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. This is one of the best ones I've ever heard. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. One of the closest groups of friends that I have are my parlay builder friends. Who doesn't love a parlay? And no parlays hit like NFL parlays during the season. That's just a fact. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. David, we still have more to get into here because there were so many surprising moves today that we wondered at one point, how are we even going to talk about everything today? And we're not going to be able to, but still more big stuff to get into, including the fact that Junior Colson out of nowhere kind of went from, having an injury that we weren't sure about to now being done for the entire season. This is obviously terrible news. It's made worse by the fact that he didn't really have a chance to go out there and put anything on tape that you could build on and kind of be hopeful. Okay, well, look, he was starting to go in the right direction, which I think in small amounts he actually was, but it wasn't enough to make you think like, okay, this guy's about to have a huge leap and now he's done for the season. But I just feel terrible for him. He had an appendectomy last year because he had appendicitis, ended up coming back, ended up on injured reserve during the season. Even when he did play, he didn't look great. And now a lot of us were hoping, hey, can we see that second-year jump with Navarro Bowman coaching him like we saw with Deion Henley? And the fact of the matter is we're not going to have a chance to, because his season, David, is already over.
Yeah, it's just, man, you can't not help but feel bad for the kid, regardless of how he performed, good or bad, which most of it wasn't great. But, man, to start your NFL career with a serious injury and then not be able to kind of take that really valuable ramp-up time in the offseason and in the preseason, and then, get thrust into action out there, and, maybe he really wasn't ever right. And then a new season where he's talking about, hey, the most important thing for me is I got to stay healthy. I really want to show what I'm capable of, and was kind of defiant about it. But unfortunately, another injury that we don't know about is costing him his second season in the NFL. And man, as a third round pick, it's starting to look pretty bad so far to start his NFL career for Junior Colson.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like, this is just going to be 2 years after he's getting drafted that, he's not going to be able to put anything really positive on tape in a regular season game for the most part. And also the Chargers using one of their top 100 picks in their first draft aren't going to get anything out of that player, right, for the first season. So first 2 seasons in this case. So yeah, I feel for the player, obviously, most of all. The Chargers made the decisions to go and get Troy Dye back again, to go and get Denzel Perryman back, right? Those were moves that they had, knowing that they needed some insurance on Junior Colson, and that's why those guys were brought in, and that's who have been starting. And you basically, at least as far as the rotation goes, just as far as schematically, you're losing your fourth linebacker, basically, is what this boils down to. But more than that, though, like if you're looking at the main places the Chargers defense could hopefully make a big leap, a lot of that came with Junior Colson kind of taking that next step, being the starter next to Deion Henley on the field. And if he had been able to take that step, that probably would have been the best version of this Chargers defense. But he hadn't, and now we won't see if he'll be able to kind of catch that, make up that ground, because we're not going to see him until 2026. And then even in 2026, what confidence can you have and what you're going to get from him contribution-wise going forward? But it does also come with some good news that came out first, which is that the Chargers did find a way to keep Marlo Wax, and kind of a surprising part is they kept him over Del'Shawn Phillips. I guess I'll never trust Ryan Ficken again. Joe Ortiz told me the truth. Ryan Ficken lied to me. So this was, Ryan Ficken said that Del'Shawn Phillips, even after missing most of camp, was a squared away guy. They knew what he brought on special teams. But the Chargers don't keep him, and they end up keeping Marlo Wax. And that's another thing, David, where there's like big bad news that comes out today. But then, like, how can you not be stoked for someone like Marlo Wax, who went out there in the preseason and balled out and was rewarded for it?
He surely was, and congratulations to Marlo Wax. I mean, this is a truly amazing story to feel really, really good about. He earned it, right? And as an undrafted free agent, it is super hard to make a roster, and you have to really perform at a super high level, and also there has to be opportunity. And so for Junior Colson going on IR, there was that opportunity for him to be able to take that spot. And yeah, with Del'Shawn Phillips, he's definitely more known as a special teams type of ace. And Marlo Wax is a guy who performed on special teams, but also performed at a very high level on defense and was all over the field. And you saw it. If you watched any other preseason games, Marlo Wax put his stamp all over it, and especially in that last game with 6 tackles, a tackle for loss, a sack, 2 QB hits, and a passes defense. That's the type of performance that you want to put on tape to be able to secure a spot. He did that, and he's going to factor into that rotation. We know with this Chargers defense in particular, with Jesse Minter, he likes to rotate bodies. He likes to get fresh guys on the field. So there's a chance that we could see Marlo Wax on the football field.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, with that, he'll be linebacker 4 kind of going into things, and we'll see what moves happen this week, because that is the very important part of this conversation always, is this is the initial 53-man.
Initial.
It is going to change this week. Like, that just is what it is. Some of the stories you feel great about might feel different tomorrow, and I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. I'm just giving you the real part of this, which is just that none of these guys' spots are even safe at this point.
Yeah, now, roster gymnastics.
There's still a lot that has to happen, but I think with Marlo Wax, like he made plays in all 3 facets. Like whether it was in coverage, he found a way to make plays, tackle out in space. Against the run, he was great, and he looked really good as a blitzer too. So if you have potential diamond in the rough there at a position that you have multiple examples in the last 5 years of how hard it is to draft that position and understand which guys are going to continue to play well at the next level at linebacker, you might have found one. You might have found one of those diamonds in the rough. You have to try to, hang on to that, because if you did find one, it's a really hard position to fill. But more news, the Chargers in their roster gymnastics decided to place Josh Harris, their all-pro long snapper, and Dean Leonard on IR, and now they will miss the first 4 games of the season.
Yeah, for Josh Harris, that's one I didn't see coming. I didn't know. We didn't really know what the extent of the injury was. We know that he left the last preseason game, and Tucker Fisk had to kind of step in and be that long snapper, which maybe is part of the reason why Tucker Fisk made the initial 53-man roster, showing that versatility. He is a much bigger tight end, like a guy that's 285 pounds. Like, he's a real big boy. So him being able to show that he can do that, I think, provides some versatility. I would also expect them to bring in some actual long snappers for some tryouts and probably bring one of those guys in, because you're not going to have your all-pro long snapper for at least the first 4 games, and hopefully it does not go past that. But yeah, Dean Leonard also being put on that short-term IR, and man, for Dean Leonard, he just has not been able to stay on the football field. That has been the biggest crux for him so far in his short NFL career. Has shown some flashes, shown some ability, has that real speed that you want on the outside, and also has contributed pretty heavily on special teams. But another start to a season where he's going to be on the sideline watching.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I didn't have Dean Leonard on my, final cut. I mean, he doesn't end up actually counting against the 53, so it's not technically wrong. But they found a way to keep him around. He was good on special teams. He did have an interception in that playoff game last season. And I think that for him, it's another chance, another lifeline. And also what it represents is another spot potentially that when he comes back, the Chargers will have to clear up. So you obviously look at that defensive back group with the Chargers keeping 12 defensive backs. And, it could be a case where Josh Harris's replacement does take the Tucker Fisk spot. If Tucker Fisk is the emergency long snapper, maybe that is someone, that's out there. But you can't roll into the season with Tucker Fisk as your long snapper because it'll only take one bad snap to change the trajectory of a game, change the trajectory of your season. There's only 17 games. You have to have someone who's doing that every single day and has been doing it every single day. Such an important position, one that gets overlooked too often. But hard to believe that, the Chargers roll into the season without an official, legitimate long snapper. Maybe won't be able to replace Josh Harris, but actually does it for a living. Maybe that'll be Tucker Fisk's spot. Maybe they'll find that spot somewhere else. But there's one thing I feel confident saying is that this is just the beginning of kind of the news we're going to see. Even as it stands right now, you look at the roster and you kind of just know, okay, there's some unbalanced parts of this. So great stories, good for all of the guys who were able to, make an NFL roster, even if it only lasts a week. Still, a dream made possible, a dream achieved. All of that stuff is still great. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see another offensive lineman move this week, claimed potentially on waivers. And we will know within the next 2 days who or if the Chargers try to claim anyone else like they claimed Hassan Haskins last season.
And they're 22nd in that priority list. So they have a lot of teams in front of them because of their ability, because they made the playoffs last year.
Yeah, and we'll see who of the Chargers players, if any of them actually get claimed by another team. That's what everyone was obviously concerned about. They kept a lot of their kind of hidden gems away from the waiver wire, and obviously there was intention behind that. But we'll see if the Chargers also claim somebody of their own and have to bring them onto the active roster, which means they'd have to clear up a space for that. But so much going on. What a whirlwind of the day, and we haven't even talked about, some of the other guys who were surprises on the roster. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow when we get to the latest Chargers news, because like I said, this is just the beginning. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. We appreciate you guys, and always, you can find the show every day at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But if you guys are into college football and another big moment, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation along two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts at college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow where, man, we thought we were going to do a buy or sell show. Maybe we'll still trying to put something out for you guys. You can hit us up on social media or in the comments here to get your buy or sell on the show. But something tells me we're going to have more news to be breaking down and more of this to unravel. But thank you guys as always, especially when you're checking out the late night edition. We appreciate you guys. We're back with you guys tomorrow. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.